in order to understand this, we need to sort of understand the components associated with an application. There are activities. Activities are the user interface screens. Okay? This is actually something that is declared for each application. The screen, the activity must be declared. Okay? Fragments are portions of the interface that are reusable. Intents are communication between components of the Android application. The intents can be used to send data within your application or between applications to other applications. Services are any long-running process. Now, an activity, the user interface screen, is only executing so long as that activity has focus. A service, however, continues to execute even when the app no longer has focus. Okay, so to illustrate this, if you opened up YouTube on Android and you started listening to an album, like I listen to albums on YouTube all the time. You know, I do a search on YouTube, full album, and then some artists that I want to listen to. And then I start it playing, and then on Android, I press the home screen, it stops playing. Why? Because it was executing in an activity. Like that YouTube interface screen is an activity. Now, but that doesn't happen when I open up Bandcamp, which is another app that I use to listen to music. I open up Bandcamp, I pick the album that I want to play, I click play, and then I press the home screen, and I still hear my music. Why? Because the music, the actual parsing of the data or the streaming of the data, is executing in a service. And the service persists even after I navigate away from the Bandcamp app. Okay? Very important sort of structural component of understanding this. And when you go and start looking at apps, if you're going to look for bad stuff, usually the bad stuff's going to live in a service. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. I can execute bad stuff inside of an activity too, but if I'm trying to have something that's like tracking your location and seeing where you're going and sending SMS messages while you're doing stuff, like I'm probably going to do that in a service because that gives me more sort of duration. Content providers are the data that an app has and can potentially share with other applications. So your contacts list on Android is a great example of this. If any of you have the Facebook app installed on your phone, if you go to Contacts, the Android Contacts app, there will be contacts provided by your Facebook app, which says, you know, this is Chris, here's his email, here's his telephone number, and so on. Now, that data doesn't live in the Contacts application. It still lives in the Facebook application. But when Contacts spawns up, it basically says, hey, does anyone want to give me stuff to be able to display to the user? And the mechanism of sharing that data is via a content provider. Okay? Now, if you have that, and you look in Contacts, and you see all these people, and then you uninstall the Facebook app, all that data goes away. Why? Because it's not part of the Contacts app repository. Even in Android, if you look at this, you will see you will have Gmail-based contacts and phone-based contacts. Okay, so you can store stuff on your phone, or you can store it in Gmail. And the Gmail-based storage is actually via the Gmail app content provider in order to provide that. Okay? And then the last thing is a broadcast receiver. Now, what broadcast receivers allow an Android application to do is say, hey, operating system, when X thing happens, let me know. Send me a notification via a broadcast. I will receive that broadcast and then execute code associated with my application. Okay? So, as an example, let's say that an SMS message comes in, and I'm an app that's authorized to receive SMS messages. The operating system says, hey, messages, and hey, Hangouts, and hey, Duo, and hey, whatever other apps that you have on your phone that receive SMS messages. I just got an SMS message in, and here's the telephone number that sent it, and here's the content of the message. And then each of these different apps is going to do what? They're going to take that data that was handed to them over the broadcast receiver, and they're going to put it in their database so that when the user opens up that app later, that SMS message that just came in is now displayed. Okay, so the broadcast receiver is triggered when the operating system says, this action just happened. And there's all sorts of broadcast receivers. The Wi-Fi state just changed. The phone just turned on. The user's present. The user's no longer present. Right? SMS received, and so on. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of standard with this, but then you can also define these components and be able to actually say them.